Right, this is the final one on processes then. And you remember, just to put it into context, we've been dealing with historical processes which have left their mark on the languages. First of all, we looked at residualisms, which leave scattered traces in modern dialects. Then we looked at the more prominent processes like Bath and Trapp and Strat and so on. In part 3, we began looking at processes which occurred in Britain after the Atlantic split. So that was the last lesson, only which occurred in Britain and not in America. And in part 4, we're going to finish off with English processes, with British processes which don't really occur in America. And you remember this, there are these, Wells has these 3 groups: British prestige innovations, which we dealt with last time, American innovations, which I'll deal with after the break, and some further British innovations now. Okay, so American innovations when we move to America. And there aren't quite so many as we have here. Some further British innovations now. Remember, they are not prestige innovations. They didn't occur in RP, that's to say. They only occurred in the rural, the local dialects and the dialects down below the social scale where RP is spoken. But of course, a lot of these innovations are moving up into RP because RP is becoming more demotic. Demotic, do you know that word? I wonder if I'm using it the right word. Demotic. It's becoming more sort of the people. RP has lost a lot of its very high prestige things, and today Wells, at least in the 1980s, he was talking about 3 types of RP. He was talking about mainly 2 types of RP: prestige RP. Mainstream, which would be the type of language he speaks, and sort of roughly the type I speak, but URP would have been the old-fashioned type which the gentry, the upper classes speak, which are spoken in the upper class public schools and so on. And you sometimes hear that coming across on the BBC. Some of the announcers still have this old URP pronunciation.
U is for
upper class. Sometimes known by the URP speakers as the upper crust. The upper crust. I don't know why the upper crust, they use it like that. Crust is, skorpa on the top of a bread, the hard thing on the top of a bread. It's the upper crust. Okay. But when you're going to look at non-RP innovations, now the sort of things that you're going to see everywhere if you're going to hear anywhere in England, and some of them in Scotland, H dropping, diphthong shift, L vocalization, glottalization and glottaling, and the ing variable. And we've dealt with some of these, so I won't go through them very closely. But let's look at H dropping now, because a lot of people mistake H dropping. I want you to get this clear in your mind. H dropping, some sort of H droppings, not real H dropping. We don't really call it H dropping, so I'll put it in quotation marks. Occurs on unstressed structural words in most native English accents, including RP and GA. So that's not what we're talking about. Do you remember this? This is not what we call H dropping here. I'm talking about the H dropping on little unstressed words, which we learnt in phonetics. Let me give you an example. And here you can review the material on weak forms from the first year phonetics course if you like, and scroll down to D, H dropping. But let's give you an example. It's words like he, his, her, have, has, and had. When they're not stressed, then they are H dropped anyway, even in RP everywhere. Okay? So let's have a look at some of these. Did you see I said have and not av? Why? Let's have a look at some of these.
Because it's the verb. It's the main.
Because it's the main verb. Okay, good. so I shouldn't H drop there. I think he arrives on Monday. That would be the unstressed, wouldn't it? Here, I think, and I've marked the stresses.
So this is not the H dropping we're going to...
This is not the H dropping I want you to look at. This is the H dropping you've got to remember goes on everywhere in RP. I think he arrives on Monday. Okay. I gave it to her yesterday. Or if you're an American, gave it to her yesterday. Oh, you might notice that I'm transcribing Monday, yesterday. That's probably an old-fashioned pronunciation. Probably I say Monday, yesterday now, but a lot of people in England still say yesterday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay. Bush has changed his mind. Bush has changed his mind. There you go. What had Harriet got to say? What had Harriet got to say? I have a certificate here. I have a certificate here. And there's the stressed have. I have it. I have a certificate here. And sometimes these words can have a stress on them. If I say no, sorry, that's his, and I'm pointing, it's not hers, it's his, and I'm making the distinction, then I would have the H. Okay. Now, if we, for instance, have somebody who has H dropping, that refers to the loss of H in stressed words, in the structural words. So somebody with H dropping would say here, what had Harriet got to say? Leaving the H off Harriet. Okay. I have a certificate here. 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 And notice that this would be the same anyway. Here you're a little bit unsure of whether this would be the definite article, or her. It would be pronounced pretty well the same. I have a certificate here.
But I don't know. Can you say I've her?
If you want to stress the word, whose certificate have you got? I've got her certificate here. Then you would stress it, and then you put the stress on it, and it would be her, a strong form.
So you wouldn't say just I apostrophe VE.
No, you couldn't do that there because this is a main verb. You'd only put the apostrophe.
I've got.
I've got. That's right. That would be the only place where you have apostrophe. And so no, sorry, that's is. And this is the sort of pronunciation you get mostly in most places in England without any H's anywhere. Okay. What about a sentence like this? I'll just put it up, see whether you can transcribe, you can read it. Try it, look at it and see if you can read it. The stress is on self, is, ama. Shall I read it for you? Can you make anything out of it? Or do you want to work a bit more on it? How come you hurt yourself with
His hammer.
His
Hammer. With his.
It can be this as well.
It cannot be his. It can't be his hammer because that would be is. How come you hurt yourself with his hammer? No, this is how come you hurt yourself with his hammer? With his hammer. How come? How come? Why? How come you hurt yourself with his hammer? Very, very normal London pronunciation. How come you hurt yourself with his hammer? All right? Good. It ain't the hopping over the edges as hurts the horse's hooves, but the hammer on the hard high road. Which is what I was taught when I was a kid. And everywhere in the south of England you've got H dropping. Brighton, the accent of my friends at school had H dropping in it. And some in URP, old-fashioned RP, there's much more H's dropped than there is in normal RP. Words like hotel, oast, H. Not herb, because that's American. It's herb, but Americans say herb. It's a little bit variable there. Honor, of course, is in everywhere. Okay, so that is...
I have a question. It's not about H, but it's about the glottal stop with this. Is there a glottal stop? Oh. Can we say there's a glottal stop?
With here? Ert? No.
No, with this. With this. Between with...
Oh, yes, 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 you mean here. No, have I written a glottal stop anywhere here?
No, where you wrote is instead of...
Oh, that's is.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you mean have a glottal stop there instead of an H?
Yeah, or now is there a glottal stop? When you were saying it, when you were reading the sentence?
Then I had a glottal stop.
I don't know.
Nice. No, sorry, that's is, not there. That with a glottal stop there, it would be South African a bit. No, sorry, that's is. That would be South African. But you would have a glottal stop perhaps on here. That's is. Okay, and you could have it here. We'll look at that a bit in a bit later. With this hammer. Now, Wells says it's nice to look at it. There seem to be two possible synchronic phonological accounts. Synchronic means an account of today, the time today, an account of the language without looking into the history of the language. How do we account for the language as it stands today? That's the sort of linguistics that Matthew has been teaching you. The other type of linguistics is diachronic, which is what Tolle teaches, the history of the English language. But a synchronic phonological accounts, there could be two different types of H dropping. On one view, or in one view, perhaps the obvious one, we claim that there is simply no h in the phoneme system. It doesn't exist in the phoneme system of people who have H dropping. It follows that hedge and edge, heat and eat, hall and all are all perfect homophones, the same sound, homophones, with identical phonological representations in the lexicon. The phone h occurs, if it occurs at all, it only occurs as a variable marker of emphasis, like initial glottal stop. So for instance, if we have a word like obvious here, I might give an emphasis with a glottal stop in RP. That's very obvious. Not that's very obvious, but that's very obvious. Whereas somebody with H dropping might say, that's very obvious. It could be that it's used for emphasis. This means that both hedge and edge may on occasion be pronounced hedge. Okay, keep away from the hedge of the root of the cliff, although they're usually both edge. Historically speaking, this state of affairs results essentially from a sound change which deleted H, perhaps with the addition of a rule which variably adds H before the initial sound as a mark of emphasis. These are the rules then. That would be a sound change. H becomes 0, and then 0 becomes H. H comes in when it occurs in front of a vowel with plus emphasis. Okay? So, Harry, Arthur, if you're emphasizing it. That could be one way of looking at it. But there's another possible view which I want you to think about. This means that H remains in the phoneme system, h remains in the phoneme system, but acquires an optional 0 realization. So it is there, but optionally people can leave it out. They know it's there, but they occasionally leave it out. This means that hedge and edge are phonologically distinct in the speaker's mental lexicon. He has these two words differentiated in his mind, but hedge may sometimes be realized as edge or edge rather than hedge. In this case, edge would be expected never to be pronounced hedge. So you see that if this happens, if we get people who have the H there but leave it out, they have, if you like, a silent allophone of H, but they know the difference there, then they won't make the mistake of putting it in where it shouldn't be, because they know where it should be. All right? So there may be other consequences. Several words in English, here we are, have alternating forms sensitive to the word versus the consonant characteristic of the initial segment of the following word. Let's go on. We have, for example, let's take the word which turns to n in front of a vowel. Okay? So, for example, we may have a edge for a hedge, but an edge for an edge. Or your edge with a linking R and your edge without it. You might get that. And this seems to be the correct account of the usage of some working class Londoners. It seems to be that's what's happening in London. So they know the H is there, but they don't pronounce it. But it has this effect on other words. Okay? So they would not say an amma, they would say a amma. Because it would be like the silent aspiration in French. You have an H some places in French, don't you? What is it? I can't think of a word. Oh, what is it? Haricot, the one everybody knows, haricot, and you say le haricot. But don't people say l'haricot sometimes? No, they never do. They say le haricot. Because there is an H there, but it's not pronounced. But it makes l into le. It's weird. It's weird. Can you say l'haricot? Some people would do it, yeah. That means that they don't have the H in their mental lexicon, but people who say le haricot have it in their mental lexicon. Haricot means a bean, okay? The bean.
How can you not have the H in your phonetical system and still be using it?
That's right. Well, you do, don't you, in French? Why do you say, why is the town named Le Havre and not L'Havre? Because h is there pronounced as a zero form. You can think of it as having a zero allophone. So you know it's there, but you pronounce it as zero, which is different from not knowing it's there, so not pronouncing it.
So you just have it on the written form.
If you like, it means that you will never make mistakes when you write it, because you always know when the H is there. You will never do it wrongly, put the H in where it shouldn't be. And this is what he's saying here in this thing here. That is another possible view. We're not saying that is what's happened, but it does seem that many Londoners leave off the H, but they never make mistakes. They say Amma, Arthur, but they never say Hartha for Arthur. And they know that it should be there.
How can you possibly not have it in your phonological system?
How can you not have it in your phonological system? How can you have it in your phonological system if you never say it? I think what would happen is that they would sometimes say it.
So if you've never been to school, then you don't have it in your phonological, for example.
Oh, I see what you mean. If you can't write.
Yeah.
Can this happen to people who can't write? Look, I think the idea, what he's trying to say is that you get something like this. You get the phoneme. You get the phoneme H, and it has two allophones. It has the allophone 0, and it has the allophone H. And these may not be allophones, they may be diaphones. That's to say two things which occur rather than allophones. Two things which occur sort of optionally. And that would mean that the child learning the language would learn the h there because he sometimes uses it and sometimes hears it. Okay? And also because it would make a change in words like it's okay. Give it to Harry. Give it to Arthur. So a word like t, which is in front of a consonant and u in front of a vowel, the child would automatically say, even if he dropped this h out, he would say, give it to Harry and give it to Arthur. Do you see? So there would be other things happening to remind him that the h is there, or her. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit weird, isn't it? This is what then. This is what.
What is to have something in your phonological system?
I think she may be meaning if you don't have it in phonological system, then how can it be that you pronounce it at times?
Yeah.
Sometimes that you do pronounce it.
Or you have been.
Hang on, say it again. If you don't, can
you don't have the h in the phonological system, how come it is in some words pronounced?
Okay. Well, now, first of all, we're trying to find an explanation for the fact that it would be somehow. We know there are Londoners who don't pronounce the h, but they know where the h should be even before they've learnt to read.
So in some words they do actually pronounce the h.
But they pronounce it silently.
Yeah, okay, they pronounce it silently, but aren't there some words where they actually do pronounce the h?
Always. No words where they always pronounce the h. There are some words where they know that there should be an h there, and they pronounce them sometimes.
Oh yeah, so if they're trying to be seeming more, what should I say?
More formal?
More formal,
yeah.
They would pronounce the h.
Right. If you remember the thing we listened to on the London thing we had, he talked about Thursday at one point, and he also talked about Thursday. He had an optional change, th and th. So the th pronunciation of th would be his identity pronunciation. I am a Londoner. I remember now I'm a Londoner, I'm saying Thursday instead of Thursday. Okay? To make an identity for himself. That same person might then have hammer in his mind, but to make the identity he'll say amma. Okay?
And then you say he doesn't have...
He's dropping the h.
Yeah, but still this person would have the h in his phonological system.
He would have the h in his phonological system. Remember that the sounds we have in our phonological systems, look. The sounds we have in our phonological systems are never heard, are they? Let's take the phoneme, for instance. Let's take the phoneme okay. When you hear it, it comes out as an allophone. It either comes out as p or as b. Okay. Whenever, this is what we try to do when we talk about phonemes. Phonemes are ideas in the mind. When they come out as allophones. They are realized as allophones.
But then we don't have any sound in our phonological system. Any.
They have ideas in our minds. Yeah. Look, let's take another one here. T may be t, it may be t, and it may be okay. That, and maybe I say that, and I am thinking of this sound. I'm thinking of t, but I'm saying that. The sounds that we actually make are not the conscious sounds. We're conscious of the ideas in our minds, but we're talking too fast to hear what we're saying. The sounds that we make are semi-conscious, they're conscious afterwards, we hear ourselves saying it, we can go into it and make it sort of formal, we can listen to our sounds, we start speaking very, very carefully, but normally, when I come into the door I say hi, and I'm not thinking how I'm saying it, whether I'm saying hi or not, or I or anything, you know? I'm not thinking the way I'm saying it. We don't really think of our speech when we're speaking. So there's no reason why we can't have an H which sometimes has a zero realization. We may not even realize we're zeroing it. We may realize we're zeroing it.
So we don't realize it unless we're trying to speak carefully.
Yeah, but you can speak carefully in two different ways, can't you? You can speak carefully by making your language more formal and more beautiful. Or you can think, I'm going to show I'm a Londoner, mate. And I'm going to talk like that, so you know I'm a Londoner, right? Because I'm proud of being a Londoner. And then I'll say mate and not mate. And I'll say hammer and not hammer. Because I'm proud of it and I want to show it. I may not have in my, consciously, I won't say to myself, I better drop an H here. Or I better use a glottal stop here. It'll be something which will not be conscious, but I'll be doing it without thinking about it. If...
People with this accent would have only this, like 0 for H.
Some Londoners will have both of them. Other Londoners may have this one, that's to say they don't have H anywhere. And the reason for these two types of doing it was we've got to explain somehow why some Londoners seem to know that the H should be there, although they don't use it. We've got to explain that somehow. And it's not a question of writing. It's very rarely a question of writing. When we're speaking, we're not thinking of the written forms anyway. And some Londoners can't read or write, but they still, children can't read or write, but they still do the same thing there. But I think you can recognize that is only in London. That's the other possible view. That's only in London. In most places in England, you've got H dropping. It means there's no H anywhere. It's simple. Okay. H dropping does appear to be the single most powerful pronunciation shibboleth in England. Come on, you all know what shibboleth is, don't you? Does anybody know what shibboleth is? You terrible people, you don't read your Bibles, that's what it is. It's all in the Bible. There was some time when the Jews were killing somebody else or something, killing some other people in the Bible, and they were all running away, and they were capturing the Jews, capturing their enemies and saying, are you a Jew or are you a Philistine or something like that? And the guy would say, I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew. And they'd say, well, say shibboleth then. And he would say, Sibboleth. Ha ha, you're not a Jew, you can't say shibboleth, and they'd be killed. This is from Milton, where many men were put to death for want of well pronouncing shibboleth. And we use this word shibboleth then to mean, it's biblical, to mean sort of the point where you can really check where somebody is genuine or not. Okay. I was once told that the shibboleth in Icelandic is when you really want to learn Icelandic, the shibboleth is if you can say Eyjafjallajökull, then you're okay. That's the shibboleth, is Eyjafjallajökull. I can remember sitting so many days saying to myself, trying to get it right. Eyjafjallajökull. It's an incredibly ridiculous word. Eyjafjallajökull. Okay.
It's a tongue breaker.
A London school teacher tells me he has only to look sternly at any child who drops an H, and that child will say the word again, this time correctly. It's a great shibboleth, it has a stigma on it. Don't drop your H's. We're always being told, don't drop your H's. So the repercussions of this are you get hypercorrection. People put H's back in, they say Arthur and Henry, no he isn't. No he isn't. And you get repercussions, the use of H in weak forms, in adoptive RP, people who want to try and pretend that they have an RP accent but don't. And they will say something like, I have just sent off her certificate. I have just sent off her certificate, and use the H everywhere where a normal RP person wouldn't. Any questions on H dropping?
Yeah. So if you never pronounce H, does it mean that the H is not in your phoneme system?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny though, French, for instance, who have H dropping, and Italians and Spanish who don't have H in their language, and that seems to be a sort of Sprachbund. It's come over England as well. The H has dropped off in all these languages. But Italians and French people, they find it very difficult to pronounce H. Find it very difficult to say Harry. Spanish particularly, but French particularly, because French have this silent pronunciation of H, and they think they're pronouncing it, as in Le Havre. Le Havre. They say Harry, and they think but they're not. It's not there, you see. It's a bit like the Russians who don't have H at the beginning of a word, so they only have H or G. The Russian for Halifax is Galifax. I often wondered, how do Russians laugh? How do French laugh? How do French laugh? Yeah, there you go. You've got the H there and you laugh. But you haven't got it in... And I say, oh, yeah, it's interesting. But French find it difficult to say the H sound, but English people who've left it off don't find it difficult. It's easy for them to pronounce. It's rather interesting. The other one is diphthong shift. We're going over time again, aren't we? Oh God, the time goes so fast. Diphthong shift, we've done diphthong shift. Let me get through it. Again, it's E changes to A changes to I changes to Oi, and Oi changes to Ui, U changes to O changes to Ow changes to Ow. Okay, we've done that. It looks like this. Fleece to face to priest to choice, and okay, we've done that. I'm not going to do it anymore. That's diphthong shift, all right? And you can also see diphthong shift. That will go into the variable on diphthong shift. Make sure you have diphthong shift very clear in your minds, because it's very important when we start talking about Australian. We're going on with L vocalization. Look at that briefly. L vocalization happens widely, and it's coming into RP. I'm not sure I use it, but I'm not quite clear. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. It's like this. Remember the rules for the allophones of L in RP? That is to say, light L, that is to say L, okay. All right. Let me explain what we're doing here. You can say two things. You can say L becomes dark L. Or you can read this in another way. You can say that the phoneme L, which is never pronounced, has the pronunciation L when it occurs. It's the same thing, do you understand? Two ways of looking at phonemes. You can say that L turns into L, or you can say that the unpronounceable, just thought L, has these two different ways of being pronounced when it is pronounced. Either L in front of a vowel, or L not in front of a vowel. Okay? So this is our rule, and we read it, then either L turns into L, or we can read it, the phoneme L is pronounced as L when it occurs either in front of a pause, or when it occurs in front of 0 or more word boundaries and then a consonant. That's to say, when it occurs in front of a consonant, whether or not there's a word boundary in front of it. This 0 here means 0 or more something. So this would mean 0 or more consonants. It can mean there can be one consonant or there can be no consonants there. It makes no difference how many whether there's a word boundary there or not. If it comes in front of a consonant, it will be l. So you see, if we can explain that, we can give examples. We can say, for instance, that we can say that mill will be dark. He lives in the mill. Unless a vowel follows it, he is the miller. Okay? Or he lives in the mill on the floss. That would also be mill on, because here you have a word or boundary in front of the consonant. So you see, and what am I doing? What am I doing here? Yes, okay. So that this will be a light L, although a consonant comes. It doesn't, as though a verb comes after, a vowel comes after it. Doesn't matter how many of these you get here. And he says how many, because we talk about that as being one syllabic, one boundary between syllables, and some phoneticians have two boundaries between syllables, meaning they're boundaries between words. So it doesn't matter how many of these you get in front of the consonant. Does that make sense? Good. All right. And in accents where you've got L vocalization, then instead of turning into L, it turns into O. It vocalizes into O. Now, make it clear, and we'll give some examples. This is from an old phonetics exam. I asked you to take this ridiculous sentence: lazy girls lie all night long on piled up milk-white pillows, and to show which of the L's here are dark or light in RP. So you get lazy girls lie all night long on piled up milk-white pillows, and it would be, this is light here because there's a vowel following it. This is dark here because there's no vowel following it. Girls, light vowel, all, no vowel following it here. Long, vowel following it. Piled up because no vowel following it. Milk, no vowel following it. White, pillows, here it's light. And we can see that this is the transcription then as it should be, with the dark L's marked where there's no vowel following them. But if you got L vocalization, then you get this. You get lazy girls lie all night long on piled up milk white pillows. So the L doesn't disappear in front of consonants, in front of vowels. It only disappears where it would be dark. Dark L then becomes vocalized. And everywhere in England you can get this. Many RP speakers have it. They say milk instead of milk. It's very, very common everywhere in England. Not, I don't think, in America. Not in Scotland very much. But you hear it also in Australia and New Zealand. That's L vocalization.
Are there any dialects where there would usually be the dark L, where the dark L is pronounced as a light one?
Precisely. Good. There are quite a few dialects where you get this situation. You get this situation. There's only one allophone of L. L is always pronounced L. Many American dialects and many Scottish dialects. So you get L everywhere. So it would be lazy girls lie all night long on piled up pillows. That's many American accents are like that, and Scottish accents tend to be like that. And that is an example. No, hang on. What have I got here? I'm doing this wrong, aren't I? I'm doing this here and this here. What I want is that is the phoneme, and its realization. What we actually hear is always L. Okay. And when this happens, you don't get L vocalization. There aren't anybody who always has O there. Okay. There are also dialects where O has this allophone. It's always light. Lazy girls lie all night long on piled up milk white. Wales, India, some parts of India. Okay.
And the extract we heard about the adoptive RP.
That would be a light L, yeah.
You were saying milk?
Milk, yeah. Because she has L vocalization, she says normally milk, or she used to say milk, and she would be told in school, pronounce your L's. Now the teacher at school doesn't know anything about phonemes or allophones. He won't say, pronounce your L's and use the right allophone in front of consonants. He'd just say, pronounce your L's. So that the poor girl who is saying milk will then start saying milk. Okay. And sometimes we're taught to sing with that L as well. Field in singing. Glottalization. Often preceded in certain syllable final environments by a glottal stop. Let's look at this. Yeah, either this is a new 20th century phenomenon, or else no phonetician had previously noticed it. We don't know. We realized it in the 20th century, and maybe that people haven't noticed it before then, because it's not easy to hear. It is often referred to as pre-glottalization or glottal reinforcement. Look. The following conditions appear to apply. It only occurs when p, t, k, or ch, fortis, plosives and affricates, are in syllable final positions, and 2, it occurs only when p, t, k, and ch are preceded by a vowel, a liquid, or a nasal. They have a vowel, a liquid, or a nasal in front of them. Examples. Now, this is a bit. This is how he gives the examples. Just to explain this, if you like, people who have glottalization, like I do, they have it in A, and they may have it in B and C and D. And the more they have it, the further they go down. So people who have complete glottalization have it all the way down to H. But some people only have it in A or B or C. If you've got it here in B, you probably won't. If you've got it here in E, you'll probably have it in the ones above it. Okay? And we can explain this then. Can I explain this again?
How then would be, with glottalization, how would apple be pronounced?
It would be apple. Apple. Let me get to it and I'll give you examples. Can I explain that true consonant? Now, L means a lateral, S means a sibilant, L means a lateral, S means a sibilant, and true consonant means all other consonants. So it occurs when you have at the end of a syllable here, and any other consonant follows. It will happen with me. It always happens in words like stop walking, quite good, quite quite good. I think I also say stop worrying, quite likely. It's very difficult to hear, isn't it? Quite likely and quite likely, quite likely. It happens at the same time as I say to, or just before it, I also go perhaps at the same time. What? Okay. Glottalization is what's happening there. Stop eating, I think I have it there. Stop, possibly I have it there. Stopped, capsule, yes, I think I have it there. Stopped, capsule. Hopeless, yes, I think I have it there. Happen, no, I don't have it there. I say happen, not happen. And happy apple, stop, I don't stop it, I don't have it there where P occurs in front of a vowel or in front of ul. I don't say happy apple, stop it. Okay. But you'll hear it all the way through here. It's very difficult to hear, and I don't want you to spend a lot of time thinking about it. I'll give you some examples here then. Just take the top one. Stop talking, quite good, like, look down. This is in RP as well. And it's not stigmatized in any way because people don't know they're doing it, and only phoneticians have heard it anyway. Nobody knows it's happening. Okay? That's glottalization. But glottaling, the next one, is very, very well heard and very much stigmatized. That's glottaling. And that means that t turns into a glottal stop in all environments. All environments mentioned in the table I was giving you above. If you like, what may happen is that it t first of all becomes glottal stop, and t is pre-glottalized first, and then the t itself drops out. So that you get, and it sometimes applies to p and k as well in London. But I use it quite a bit in t, quite good, instead of quite good. Quite easy, no, I wouldn't say quite easy, that's a London thing. Quite easy. Mattress, that's London, not me. Button. I probably say button and not button. Butter, have some butter on your bread, I don't do that. Bottle for bottle, I don't do that. But listen to it then in London, that is glottaling, and it will be. So
the London accent, that has glottaling.
Has glottaling.
Series.
That is to say that t turns into a glottal stop in all these environments here. In all these environments.
How about with stop?
It happens to t. It happens to t. It does occasionally happen to p and k, but not in all these environments. For instance,
with the t in the stop, that wouldn't be glottal. That wouldn't be glottalized.
No, not at the beginning of words. Only between vowels. Peter, my name is Peter. Bottle, okay. Butter, letter, read a letter. And it does occasionally happen with P in words like supper. You may occasionally hear supper. Come and eat your supper. Okay. Talking. Stop talking. Stop talking. Stop talking. Yeah, you could hear that. But it's mostly t. Okay. And of course it doesn't happen in the States at all. People would say quite butter with a d instead of a t. Bottle, get in. It's found in the local accents of London, in Glasgow and Edinburgh, in many rural accents of the south of England and East Anglia, and increasingly in urban accents everywhere in England, urban accents in the towns everywhere in England, and it occurs increasingly at the end of words in RP. T-glottaling is well known as a Cockneyism in words such as butter, bottle, butter and bottle. These forms are sharply stigmatized. People get their knuckles rapped in school for talking like that. But T-glottaling in environments A, B and E must consider to fall within the current mainstream RP. Look at that again. A, B and E. Quite good, quite likely. See, rights. I'm not sure about that. Quite. But this is very, very common. These two are very, very common in RP as well. Quite good, quite likely. And that, and so on. Interestingly, it's the linguistic accent of English, which is in the 1950s, shows it only in a small area around London and East Anglia. In 1905, Wright, the phonetician in 1905, recognised it only in Midwest Scotland, Lothian in Scotland, and Edinburgh. So it was only Scottish. And the only addition, and then only before schwa plus a liquid, that's to say in words like kettle, water. But in 1909, Daniel Jones, in the first edition of his pronunciation of English, writes, in Scotland and London, t is often replaced by the glottal plosive giving the London example, I ain't got one. I ain't got one. I ain't got one. The very widespread dissemination of for t in the present day suggests therefore that glottaling must have spread very fast in the course of the present century, in the course of the last century, he means. It's spreading very, very fast. It's becoming an English thing. And finally, the ing variable, ing turns into in. Although this variable is neither exclusively British nor a recent innovation, we discuss it in this chapter, he says, because he doesn't know where else to go. It's everywhere. You find it everywhere in England. At the present day, it seems that almost every English-speaking community exhibits a social or stylistic alternation between the two possibilities. The form with the velar nasal being high and that with the alveolar low. It's a sort of high stylistic thing to say singing, low to say singin'. So you've got high and low there, ing at the top and in the bottom. Nearly everywhere, pretty well everywhere. The question is, which is the original? Is it ing, which has dropped the g, the ng, so ing changes to in, or is it the other way round? And there is some indication that it may be the other way round, strangely enough. Middle English had ind as a verbal reflection. Ing is originally a verbal noun, a gerund. And ing became current as either. I won't go into this now, I think, but we might notice that names such as Hastings, Buckingham, Headingley also exhibit the alternation. So people say Hastings, Buckingham, Edinley. Okay, but words such as string, fling, redwing never have in. The alteration is restricted to weak syllables, only when there's not a stress on the syllable. I won't talk about the weak vowel merger, the Lenin-Lennon merger at the moment, so we'll leave that out. The only native English-speaking territory where everybody uses ing is South Africa. That's wrong. That's wrong. Okay, good. Hypercorrection gives rise to would-be elegant pronunciations such as chicking instead of chicken. Let's have some more chicking. And guarding instead of garden. And brazing. What's it? Brazing, a brazing hussy instead of a brazen hussy, and badminton instead of badminton. Hypercorrections there. Good, okay.